Hey folks, it's Sam here at Monkey Boys Workshop, and before we get started with this episode, I just wanted to say thank you to all you guys. You've been so supportive over on Instagram and on here since uploading my first lot of videos a couple weeks back, and so I just wanted to say thank you. But in today's episode, we're going to talk about tools, and more specifically about the 5 power tools that you need to get started with in woodworking and furniture making. This is a question I get asked quite a lot, and it's quite a tricky one to answer because it depends on a few things. Now, what type of projects do you want to build? What kind of materials do you want to build from, such as plywood, hardwoods, plastics, metals, skateboards? It's all possible. It also depends on what your budget is and also what tools you already own. So let's strip it back to the bare necessities.
Look for them.
Simply put, you're going to need tools for cutting, drilling, shaping and sanding. Now, there are obviously other tools that you might want to eventually get for milling and joining, but we'll talk about those in another video. But these first 5 essential tools are, in my opinion, all you need to build anything and to get you started, which is what you want and which is what I want. The only extra thing you need is a little bit of this and a little bit of this, but that's all on you. So, cutting, it's probably the first thing you're going to do on a project after you've measured where you want to cut, of course. So I'd recommend getting yourself a circular saw. You can use it for breaking down sheet goods, rough cutting timber, and well, all sorts of cutting with the grain and across it. You can make jigs for them for cutting straight lines, just like a track saw, and I've even seen people make a jig to cut circles with them. I'd recommend 165mm, which is this one, which is what, 6.5 inches, as they do come in very many different sizes for different applications, but this size will get you going for now. Personally, I wouldn't be afraid of getting a battery-powered one these days either, because the technology has come a long way in the past 10 years. Find a brand that you like the look of and simply run with it. And that way you won't have different battery types scattered all around your workshop and making an absolute mess. As you can see behind me, I did go for Makita purely because I liked the colour of the blue/teal. I'm personally just not a fan of the brightly coloured tools. I won't mention any brands in particular. These days they're all pretty decent, to be honest, but just know this. It's all about the blades. You don't have to break the bank on the tool, but get decent quality blades and you'll be absolutely golden. So, another cutting tool that you might want to get your hands on is the amount of takes I've done on that is a jigsaw. Nothing much to say about these other than it's basically a handheld it's not a handheld jigsaw, it's a handheld, I was about to say router, it's a handheld bandsaw. You'll need one for cutting curves if you're making serving boards or charcuterie boards or any other cool fancy detail on a piece of furniture. Again, stick with the brand so you don't have to bust the bank for extra batteries. Just like the circular saw, there is an array of different blade types. Let me just focus in on here. There we go. That you can get for cutting wood, plastics, metals and all that lot. I'd recommend grabbing a few different types, sticking them in a drawer or your tool bag, because someday you'll probably end up using them. Let's get these back. Okay, drilling. Let me get my tools out. Now this really couldn't get any simpler. You need 2 drills, but for 2 different jobs. Now I would recommend getting yourself an impact driver, which is going to be great for driving in all those screws for your projects. It's usually smaller than the combi drill, but it packs a punch. It's just good to have this as a designated driver of all those screws, because then you can use the combi drill for all your pilot holes, or your bigger holes and maybe countersinks and all that lot, and then you don't have to keep swapping the drill bits over. Now, the combi drill usually has a few more different functions, like the hammer action here, which is good for drilling into masonry and brick. You've got, what's that one there? That's for driving in screws, and that's for drilling pilot holes and other stuff like that. You've also got different torque settings. So if you are driving in, say, let's some delicate screws, then you can put the torque setting down and then you won't strip the heads out. You can even attach a sanding drum and any other abrasives as well. They can get you into all those nooks and crannies. This is for obviously if you don't have an oscillating spindle sander or a drill press. But yes, a sanding drum in the combi drill works well for getting in those nooks and crannies and all those shapes. Talking of shapes, we're on to shaping. Now, I really don't want to sound like a broken record, as I'm sure a lot of you have heard, but if you haven't, the most versatile tool in your workshop, other than maybe the table saw, is a router. Now, these come in many different shapes and sizes and can get quite overwhelming when first in the market for one. To start with, I'd recommend getting yourself a trim router. I would say I probably use this more than the big beast. You can use it to add all sorts of details like chamfers and roundovers for flush cutting, V-grooves and rebates, which I've actually got in here right now. So many different possibilities. These two have a fixed base, which is essentially like this. Then you move it up, then you clamp it down. But if you can, when you're in the market for one, look for one with an optional plunge base, which basically lets you do this. It'll give you way more versatility and options, but saying that, I don't even have one. I do want one, but I just don't, okay? I don't. But what I do have is the beast. This will give you more options for bigger, beefier router bits. Plus other stuff like guide bushings and tongue groove joinery, all that lot. Endless. With the trim router, you'll be looking for bits with a 1/4 inch shank, and that is this little bit here. And that shank fits into this, which is called a collet. So you are somewhat limited to the size and shape of bits that you can get. But the bigger the router, the bigger the collet, which means the bigger the shank, which means the bigger bit that you can get. With the bigger routers though, you can change the collet size from their usual 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch, and I think there are other sizes in there as well. So that does make it even more versatile. But I would recommend getting yourself a trim router to start off with and getting yourself comfortable, because, I'm not gonna lie, these are scary ass machines. So get yourself comfortable with a trim router, then upgrade yourself to a 1/2 inch beast of a router. Before we move on, I just wanted to say as well, you don't have to break the bank or get a second mortgage out or mow 100,000 lawns just to get these tools either. So now we're at sanding. So, if you don't know already, I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but you are going to be spending a lot of time sanding. Like a lot of time sanding. So this is where I would say to reach the top part of your budget. This is something I wish someone had told me when I first started out. Back in the day, I used to use a really cheap sheet sander from Wilko's, which cost me about 25 quid, and no word of a lie, I think I went through about 7 of them, maybe up to 10, because they kept burning out and catching fire. You get what you pay for, I guess. But the worst thing was, it took me forever to sand my projects, and the vibration on the hands was unreal, and the dust collection was just absolutely terrible. But then I eventually upgraded to this lot. As much as I love Makita, these are good, but they're not their best sanders or the top of the range sanders either. Belt sanders, like this one, are great for taking a lot of material off because they're very aggressive. I used to use this a lot when I used to do reclaimed furniture back in the day and sanding down big old, like 300-year-old joists to get all that dirt off. If you are going to use this though, it does kick out a lot of sawdust, so I'd either get it hooked up to a shop vac, or even better, just work outside. A sheet sander, just don't bother. I personally find them absolutely useless. This one simply just sits upon the shelf on the tool wall, gathering dust, but still looking kind of pretty, you know. But yeah, don't bother. But the random orbital sander. This one isn't too bad. It's not one of the top of the range orbital sanders by any stretch. It is battery powered, so you do have to make sure that you have another battery on the go because it will run out very quickly. And like I said, a lot of sanding. But for many years, I did use both of these two sanders and sometimes the sheet sander in combination with each other, and it served me very well for that length of time. But last year, I got myself one of these. A high quality random orbit sander. And I wish I'd done this a lot sooner. If you add up all those 3 tools, the belt sander, the sheet sander, and the small random orbit sander, you're about 80 quid away from getting one of these. And I have not used those 3 machines since getting this. Sanding for hours on end creates a lot of fine dust in the air and, well, on everything. And that's the stuff that you just don't want to get in your lungs. So the high quality random orbit sander like this Festool one is just incredible with its dust collection. The Merca brand also does a similar one. Seeing as you're tethered to the shock vac, you might as well be corded as well, which means you don't have to charge and change your batteries. So all you have to do is put some headphones on, get in the zone and sand away. The other thing I've mentioned is vibration, which is something that's not talked about a lot. With cheaper sanding tools, the vibration you get from using them for hours on end is so high that it can actually damage the nerves in your forearms and your hands. Before getting this high quality sander, I'd come in from having a big day of sanding, have some dinner, chill on the sofa, and I'd still be feeling vibrations and fizzy feelings from my elbows down up until I went to bed. So, to summarise on sanding, dig deep as much as you can because it'll reduce your time sanding, and especially if you buy decent quality sandpaper, so don't scrimp on that. You'll also have lower health risks because there'll be less fine dust in the air, and you won't be leaving the workshop feeling like you've been on an arcade electric chair for hours on end. So, to go over those 5 tools again. You've got your circular saw, jigsaw, combi drill and impact driver set, your router, and then your random orbit sander. High quality one, remember? All the power tools you need to begin making anything. Cutting, drilling, shaping and sanding. If you want me to do a video on the tools for milling and joining, just let me know down in the comment section below. I really do hope that's helped a few of you out because I know from personal experience how daunting it could be when you're buying your first lot of tools. I'll leave my Amazon link in the description box below where you'll find the majority of the tools that I've mentioned. So feel free to check it out as this really does help support my channel. Any other tools not in my Amazon store, I'll also leave a link to. If you liked the video, I'd really appreciate a thumbs up, a comment, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell, and then you won't miss a video. Happy building, folks, and I'll see you in the next episode. You can make jigs for them. I'd recommend. What did I write in my script? A rough cutting tongue bit, but. I just want to look the part. You can make and I'd recommend us